Massacre of Limoges, 1370. The Black Prince's Butchery. The year was 1370. The 100 Years' War had already soaked the soil of France with blood for more than 3 decades. Armies marched, cities burned, and villages were left in smoldering ruin. The war was not a single clash of kings but a relentless cycle of betrayal, siege, and massacre. And among its darkest moments was the fall of the city of Limoges, where the blood of thousands of innocents ran through the cobbled streets, staining the memory of the man who ordered their slaughter. Edward of Woodstock, better known as the Black Prince. Limoges was a wealthy city in central France, fortified with strong walls and a proud population. It had been held by the English crown, but loyalty was a fragile thing in the shifting tides of the 100 Years' War. In September 1370, Bishop Jean de Cross, who had long been uneasy under English rule, betrayed his masters. He secretly opened negotiations with the French king, Charles V, and delivered Limoges into French hands. To the Black Prince, this betrayal was unforgivable. Edward was already broken in body. Once the most celebrated knight in Christendom, Victor of Crécy and Poitiers, he was now ravaged by illness, perhaps dysentery or cancer. But though his body failed, his rage burned hotter than ever. Lying in Bordeaux, weak and in pain, the Black Prince received news of Limoges' treachery. His fury was unrestrained. He swore that the city would pay in blood for its betrayal. He gathered an army of 5,000 men, English, Gascon, and mercenaries hardened by years of war. With them marched his brothers, John of Gaunt, Duke of Lancaster, and Edmund of Langley. Together they advanced on Limoges. The city's defenders, reinforced by French troops, prepared for a siege. Behind its walls huddled not only soldiers, but thousands of ordinary townsfolk. Merchants, craftsmen, women, and children who had no choice but to endure the storm that was coming. The siege was swift and merciless. The Black Prince ordered mines dug beneath the walls, packed with wood and pitch and set aflame. The great stones of Limoges cracked and thundered as the defenses collapsed. Smoke and dust filled the air as a breach yawned open. Through it poured the English host, armored, bloodthirsty, eager for slaughter. What followed was not battle, it was butchery. The English knights and soldiers surged into Limoges like a tide of steel and fire. They showed no mercy, no restraint. The people of the city, unarmed, terrified, were cut down where they stood. Streets became rivers of blood. Corpses piled in doorways. Entire families were hacked to pieces, their screams echoing through the narrow alleys. Women were dragged from their homes, violated, and butchered. Children were trampled under horses' hooves or impaled on the points of lances. Chroniclers would later claim that 3,000 men, women, and children were slaughtered that day. Some wrote that it was more. The dead lay so thick that the soldiers had to climb over them to continue their killing. Fire consumed houses, the smoke mixing with the stench of blood and charred flesh. Limoges, once a jewel of the region, became a charnel house. The Bishop of Limoges, the very man whose betrayal had brought this doom, was dragged before the Black Prince. The once mighty Edward sat in armor upon a chair, pale, gaunt, his body racked by illness but his eyes blazing with fury. Jean de Cross fell to his knees, begging for mercy. The Black Prince condemned him as a traitor but did not kill him. Instead, he imprisoned him, a living symbol of his vengeance. For Edward, the death of thousands of innocents was punishment enough for the bishop's crime. The slaughter went on for hours. No one was spared. The chronicles tell of blood running ankle-deep in the streets, of houses filled with corpses, of wailing that could be heard for miles beyond the walls. The Black Prince had ordered it, and his men carried it out with zeal. By the time the sun set, Limoges was a city of the dead. Why such savagery? To the Black Prince it was justice, harsh, pitiless justice. Limoges had betrayed him, betrayed the crown he served, betrayed the years of protection under English rule. In his mind, betrayal was worse than open war. The massacre was a warning, a terror to keep other cities from switching allegiance to the French. To the soldiers it was plunder. To the peasants it was hell on earth. And yet, even in the midst of such horror, there were glimpses of humanity. Some soldiers defied the order to kill indiscriminately, hiding children or shielding women from the slaughter. A few townsfolk survived by bribing soldiers with what little gold or jewels they had. But for the majority there was no escape. News of the massacre spread quickly through France and England. To some, it was proof of Edward's iron will, a final act of terror by a once great warrior. To others, it was monstrous cruelty, an atrocity that stained the chivalric image he had once embodied. The Black Prince, who had been hailed as the flower of knighthood, now bore the mark of butchery. For Edward himself, the massacre of Limoges would be one of his last acts of war. His health declined rapidly in the years that followed. By 1376, he was dead at the age of 45, his body broken, his legacy tarnished. In the centuries since, his victories at Crécy and Poitiers have been remembered, but so too has the river of blood that flowed through Limoges. The massacre stands as a grim reminder of the brutality of medieval war. This was not the shining pageantry of knights in armor, not the noble duels of romance. This was the reality. Civilians slaughtered without mercy, children trampled, women ravished, cities burned. The Black Prince, the paragon of chivalry, had revealed the wolf beneath the armor. And for the people of Limoges, the memory of that day never faded. The ruins were rebuilt, the streets cleaned, but beneath the stones lay the bones of thousands. Their blood cried out from the earth, a testament to vengeance, betrayal, and the cruelty of men who believed themselves instruments of justice. The Middle Ages were filled with horrors. Plague, famine, torture, the burning of heretics, the execution of witches. But perhaps the darkest horrors of all came not from superstition or pestilence, but from war itself. At Limoges, the cruelty of man against man reached a terrible crescendo, a slaughter that blurred the line between knight and butcher, between prince and monster. And so the story of Limoges endures, a city betrayed, a prince consumed by rage. Thousands of innocents sacrificed in a tide of steel and fire. In the silence that followed, as smoke rose from the ruins and the crows descended to feast, one truth remained. In war, it is always the helpless who pay the highest price.